have seen some huge stories. And these stories have been driven by politics, by politicians, the people in power.
You must stay at home.
And it's my job to figure out how these decisions made by politicians impact all of us in our everyday lives.
This is the worst thing I've ever been through in my life.
People turn up here with their child stuff in a black sack and just say, I don't want to.
And that is what it is. It's first-class poverty.
Is this an example of the welfare state failing?
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
These are stories that affect us all. Millions of children are now having to catch up. Some stories have changed all of our lives. Because like the residents, the staff are being infected. Politicians, they make decisions all of the time, and it's our job to hold them to account.
I wonder if you will take this opportunity to apologise to those families.
But in the end, the real power doesn't actually lie with the politicians. The real power lies with the people. I'm Nick Martin. I'm the People and Politics correspondent at Sky News.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first. This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. First, though, our top stories. The former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, has died at the age of 69 after collapsing at an event in North Macedonia. A £1 billion investment in Britain will go ahead after a row between the government and an international logistics company was patched up. And people in northern Gaza and in Lebanon have again been ordered by Israel to evacuate as it continues its offensive on two fronts. Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the broadcaster and commentator Duncan Barks and the broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Welcome both. Good evening. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, the Sunday Times leads with the sudden death of former Scottish First Minister Alex Salmond, who sought Scotland's independence. The Observer leads with Keir Starmer backing his Transport Secretary after comments made by the minister nearly derailed a £1 billion investment in Britain. And the Prime Minister tells the Sunday Mirror readers to judge him on his actions for Britain, despite rows over freebies and donations in his first 100 days. The Mail on Sunday claims that the Home Secretary pressured Met Police to give Taylor Swift VIP escorts to her London shows. The Sunday Telegraph reports on fresh criticism over Ed Miliband's plan to hit net zero targets by 2030. The Sunday People reports on the Health Secretary's claim that a simple new spit test could predict prostate cancer before it happens. And The Sun highlights that Wayne Rooney's wife, Colleen, has signed up for this year's I'm a Celebrity. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the program, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Duncan Barks and Lucy Beresford. Welcome both. Thank you so much for being with us. OK, let's go to a story. Let's pull up the Sunday Times, but of course it's on the front pages of many of the papers, and that is the very shocking and sudden death of Alex Salmond, who's died there at the age of 69. Duncan, first of all, I guess your reaction to the news, which was shocking, and just what you make of his legacy.
It was shocking. And tonight, you know, there's a massive hole in UK politics. This guy was a giant, a titan, not just in Scottish politics, but UK politics. And, you know, I look at Alex Salmond and his legacy. His legacy is he took the SNP, which at one time, and I don't want to be disrespectful to any SNP supporters, but a few decades ago was considered a fringe party, a fringe organisation. Over the course of time, he built this party up to this massive force, got a majority in Parliament in Scotland, and ultimately in 2014 was able to call and get the support for a referendum. Now, we know the referendum wasn't a success. It was 55% against independence, 45% in favour. But he was a remarkable campaigner. In 2014, I was working for a radio station called LBC, and we covered the Scottish independence referendum. And I was lucky enough to interview him on a couple of occasions. And he's one of those communicators. He has an element of Boris Johnson about him and Nigel Farage. The way he communicates, the way he talked to people, very affable, man on the street, very, very likeable, and very jocular as well, which was great. And I think that was his personality. He liked talking to people. And when it came to actually achieving what he wanted to achieve, which was to get a referendum, he was the driving force behind that.
And it was interesting. I mean, you mentioned Boris Johnson. We had a sort of a tribute reaction from him saying, you know, that, you know, he enjoyed debating with him. And it was interesting, Lucy, how people that were obviously his political opposites actually all seemed to have a lot of respect for him.
A huge amount of respect. I mean, he was a very, very charismatic man. I met him for the first time only in January, and I'm actually really shocked that he was 69 because he has the energy, or had the energy, of a much younger man. What is, I think, revealing is that it is being covered on all the papers of different political persuasions. And as a result, we've also got people coming in talking about their experiences of being his foe, his political foe, as well as being his ally. Nicola Sturgeon's reaction, very measured, and she's not shying away from the fact that their relationship, where, you know, she called him her mentor at one point, their relationship imploded spectacularly.
She was very honest about that.
And in her comments today, she has been very honest and very open, and she says, I just don't think you could really ignore that side of it. But I think the key thing is that he, in a way, he was a success, but the very thing that he wanted to achieve was the one thing that he didn't get. And I suppose the last few years of his career were very dogged by some of the other scandals that were coming out from the SNP and the sort of the criminal charges, which he was completely exonerated for all of them, cleared of all of them. But I think it took its toll on him. But from a personal point of view, he was still that vibrant, energetic person who was going to fight, try and be, you know, a politician in 2026.
He was one of those rare things, which is he was a conviction politician. And without getting overtly political, if you look around now, sometimes you're not entirely sure what various politicians stand for. With Alex Salmond, he was really clear what he was about and what he wanted to achieve, and you know, a proper big beast. And we don't have those people around anymore. So I think his loss is remarkably sad, and it's going to be felt by many people across the political spectrum, which, as you say, Lucy, is backed up tonight with some of the tributes.
Yeah, and not just in Scotland, you think across the UK as well.
Across the United Kingdom. You might not have agreed with his views or his stance, but you can't take away his legacy and his campaigning skills.
OK, well, speaking of politicians of today and conviction politicians, let's look at this story in The Observer, front page of The Observer. And actually, it's sort of the same story, but there's two ways of looking at it. So let's look at The Observer. Starmer steps into cabinet row to rescue global summit. Let's focus on this first, because then I know the Telegraph has a different stance. And this is DP World, this massive company that almost pulled out of this huge summit that's taking place in London, although people start coming tomorrow already because of comments made by the Transport Secretary.
Yes, so the investment summit is due on Monday, and it was flagged up a couple of days ago that, in fact, one of the biggest flagship initiatives that would be announced was very unlikely to happen. And that was going to be this £1 billion investment from DP World. And Louise Hay, in particular, Cabinet Minister, Transport Secretary, had made comments about one of the subsidiaries of DP World, which was P&O Ferries. Now, what I would say is she wasn't the only person that was making disparaging comments about P&O Ferries.
She called them a rogue operator because of sackings.
And again, you know, in 2022, when it became clear that P&O had not just sacked nearly 800 people on the day, but had done so really callously by Zoom, a pre-recorded Zoom message. And, you know, there's a reason why the boss, Peter Hepplethwaite, was hauled in front of some select committees. So what I'm trying to say is Louise Hay wasn't necessarily going rogue by saying some of the things that she said. However, it was spun in a particular way, that there was conflict within the cabinet, and particularly between her and Keir Starmer. And what the Observer is saying, which is not what the Telegraph is saying, what the Observer is saying is, oh, Keir Starmer and Louise Hay have now kissed and made up. And all I would say is it's really interesting, because this global summit really shouldn't be taking place on Monday at all, because nothing's really going to get said if you're an attendee, if you're a business executive. What you're really focusing on is the budget. And so this story has been blown up for an event that actually doesn't even need to be taking place
There's
on
a bigger
Monday.
issue here, and I think, and I agree with you about P&O, that it's right that they were called out for their behaviour 2 years ago. The hire and refire was disgraceful. However, Louise Hay has got to remember she's now Transport Secretary, and words and statements that she makes come with consequences. She's part of the cabinet, you know, and
yeah, but she's part of a cabinet. She's part of a cabinet that really wants to put workers' rights at the heart of everything they do.
There's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to think politically, not like a campaigner, which is what I think she did here. She's perfectly within her rights individually to say P&O, rogue operator. But I think this just demonstrates a little bit of the naivety of the current cabinet, because for so long they've been in opposition. It's very easy to be on the opposition benches, calling people out, having nice, tasty sound bites. Once you're in government, which they now are, they have to be fully aware that whatever you say, there's going to be political implications. And we've seen that in the last 24 hours.
You definitely need to be pragmatic sometimes, for sure. But nevertheless, I think it unfortunately speaks more to the muddle within Cabinet, that actually they were able to have someone who would go rogue, who was actually saying things that even the Conservative government was saying at the time in 1922.
And let's move it on, because we're talking about the Observer take on this. Then the Telegraph on their front page are talking about Sir Keir Starmer has been accused by allies of the Transport Secretary of using her as a scapegoat. So the Telegraph have got this story. So whoever briefed the Telegraph is the opposite. And yet the Observer saying effectively they kind of kissed and made up. Who do you believe?
And at some point, the owner of DP World, who is now coming, because there were rumours that he might not even come as well, you can imagine him thinking, what can I extract for my £1 billion investment? You know, because it is obviously so important to Keir Starmer because of all the other issues that we'll probably come on to talk about in terms of what's been happening over his first 100 days, that actually if I was the owner of DP World, I would have extracted quite a lot.
So the chairman is Sultan Ahmed bin Suleiman, and he's actually meant to be in London tomorrow, I think, on Sunday, and I believe he is due to meet Keir Starmer. So Duncan, I mean, how do you think all of this looks when and if Sir Keir Starmer is going to meet Sultan bin Suleiman?
Well, it looks muddled, doesn't it? And you could argue it looks like the one part of the cabinet doesn't know what the other part of the cabinet or their prime minister is actually thinking or saying. I mean, I'll go back to the point that I made earlier. I think in the case of the comments that Louise Hay made, you put them to one side about whether or not you agree with them. As someone who is Transport Secretary and a cabinet member, you have to think very carefully if you're going to call out a company like P&O Ferries without thinking about the consequences. Her view is entirely justified, of course it is, but she is a member of Her Majesty's government. She's a senior politician in this country, and you've got to think very carefully about the implications of what you say. But it does look like...
From a political point of view, you definitely need to look at the optics. The problem is, if you want to actually stand there and say, we are a party for workers' rights, ultimately, and again, if you're a Morgan McSweeney type figure and you're thinking ahead in 5 years' time, do I want to have someone in my cabinet who actually went against the leader and said something like this? That's probably going to play
Speaking of the leader,
better.
let's look at the front page of the Mirror. And of course, he's marking the 100 days in office this weekend. Keir, judge me on how we fix Britain. It hasn't been the easiest of 100 days. Lucy?
Not at all. Keir has written exclusively for the Mirror. He's listed out an awful lot of things that he believes that his government has done already. But unfortunately, some of those things are either they will go over the heads of most people or they won't be relevant. Whereas what people will remember this particular 100 days for is probably the cancelling of the winter fuel allowance for the majority of pensioners and the freebie row and the fact that, that as a storyline is very easy to get your head around. It's about unfairness and people just think, oh, so the Labour Party are just going to be like the Conservative Party. And I think the phraseology, it's a bit like when you've got a marital row situation and one of them is saying, I'll change, I'll be different, I can do it differently. And you're just sitting there thinking, I just don't think you're going to. You're going to be the same old person that I know you really were. And he's coming up with lines like, Mirror readers should know that I am not interested in slapping a bit of paint here or doing a bodge job there. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people will think, well, you could have fooled me.
Well, my first reaction to this, I was reading some of his words exclusively in the Mirror tomorrow, and he says, I don't look backwards. And my first reaction was, it's probably just as well, mate, giving your first 100 days, rather. Beth Rigby wrote a really interesting blog about the first 100 days of Keir Starmer in office, which I was reading earlier today, which I think is absolutely spot on. And you've kind of picked up on the stuff that I think most people will remember the first 100 days for. It's the winter fuel allowance, and it is also the releasing of prisoners early and all of the freebie stuff. Those are the things, when you talk to people in the pub, as I occasionally do, those are the things that get the cut through. Yeah. And despite maybe trying to have a reset now, and, you've got this summit that's happening on Monday, trying to get more investment into Britain, that's all well and good, but the stuff that's cutting through and is dominating the chats that normal people have outside of Westminster is all of the stuff that you and I just mentioned.
The majority of people are not obsessed with politics, so what they'll remember is freebies because it's about unfairness.
Duncan, Lucy, stay with us. Coming up, we'll have more from the papers, including claims of a holy grail when it comes to diagnosing prostate cancer. We'll have more details on that shortly.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forced or pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry.
It is an anti-woman agenda.
Sky News, get the full story first. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Can you beat Donald Trump, Governor? President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brat.
Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Free, wherever you get your news.
Excited. I've had severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper To find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, broadcaster and commentator Duncan Barks and broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Let's go to the Sunday People. And a really interesting headline here. Let's pull it up. Holy Grail prostate cancer test. It's a spit sample. Will be able to predict if some men are more likely to get prostate cancer. Duncan, what details do we actually have?
Well, we don't have the full details of the test, but we have this headline here, and I'm getting to the stage in my life where I have to start being aware of things like this, so my eyes and ears prick up when I read about new tests. I think this is great. I think there is anything that can be done to make it as simple as possible to get tested, maybe for prostate cancer, your susceptibility for it has to be a good thing, because blokes of my age are sometimes reluctant to go and see a doctor or a GP. We don't know what it entails, so if we get more information on this test and basically involves a spit sample, that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, over 55,000 men in the UK alone are going to get diagnosed with prostate cancer. And obviously, the earlier you detect it, the better. Black men are more likely to get it than white men, and they are more resistant to going to see their GPs. So a spit test, which could easily be rolled out, say, through pharmacies rather than GPs, might be the way to actually address this, to get more people taking the test.
And interesting, it says it could predict prostate cancer before it develops, obviously timing being a key issue there. OK, let's take a look at the Mail on Sunday. Law Chief pressured Met to give Taylor Swift, or Taylor, her VIP escort. Lucy, tell us about this story, because, obviously this is about the Taylor Swift concert when she was here.
Yes, so part of the background of this is the fact that there were so many politicians that appeared to have acquired free tickets to go to the concert, and that included Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, who claims that she got her tickets through Ed Balls, and then Sadiq Khan also went. And then everybody seemed to go, including me. Yeah. But I didn't give I didn't give the authorisation for a blue light police escort. And there has been much made of the fact that Taylor Swift got given this and who pressurised the Met, and the story in the Mail is saying that actually it was the Attorney General who was who lent on the Met to give this lady her security. I think we do have to remember that only the week before these concerts at Wembley, there had been a foiled terrorist attack in Vienna, which could have killed tens of thousands of people. And the idea that that could have happened in the UK is just horrific. And therefore, I don't really mind the fact that she got a police escort.
No, I don't either. But the Mail understand that you're trying to work out now who, if anyone in government requested that this top lawyer got involved and had those conversations, and it then gets us back to the point you made earlier about, well, who in government got free Taylor Swift tickets. Should we add some light relief to this? Because you're a Swiftie, aren't you?
That's what I'm hearing as well, that there's a picture of you, apparently. Oh, look at that. That's very impressive.
That's remarkable.
Thank you.
So give us the background.
Well, she was performing in Hyde Park a few years ago. I got invited to go and meet her beforehand. Not only does she meet people beforehand, but she then does a 2-hour show, and then quite a lot of her crew go into the audience and they find families, usually with quite young children, and they say, would you like to come back to the marquee and have pizza with Taylor Swift? Wow. And she does that every single night for 86 shows on the trot.
I've got a 20-year-old daughter who went to see her in Wembley, who is a big fan. I wouldn't class myself as a Swiftie, but I do like that song. What's it called? Bang It Up? What's it called?
Shake It Off.
Shake It Off. Yeah, it's good. I like that.
Nearly there.
Yeah.
Look, just learn the lyrics by 11:30.
We'll get you a friendship bracelet with the name, so you don't forget it.
than Taylor Swift, but I think she's great.
And obviously, takes care of her fans. Anyway, let's finish with The Sun on Sunday. An I'm a Celeb exclusive. Colleen of the Jungle. Duncan.
Well, again, she's another one. Oh, Duncan. Sorry.
You're going to the wrong person. It's interesting. I mean, I think the question that everyone wants the answer to is how much money is she going to get? We know last time Nigel Farage got $1.5 million.
And apparently she's going to get a lot more than that.
She's
getting more than $1.5 million, but we don't know.
I'd probably do it for a bucket of fried chicken and a bottle of Malbec.
But you're not going to get that, are you, on the jungle? That's the whole point. You're getting locusts.
What I'm interested in with this is we've seen over the years that people go into the jungle because they have a plan to launch a career or revitalise their career. Yeah. And what I want to know is, why is she doing it? I'm
intrigued by this because she has put up with a lot over the years, you know, married to Wayne Rooney, who's now head coach of Plymouth Argyle or something. Maybe that doesn't bring in as much money as when he was playing professionally, but she's usually been below the radar. She's the wife, she's had the children, but this whole issue around Wagatha Christie and the way in which she outed Rebecca Vardy, I think we saw a steely side to her, and I think this is, she has decided, this is my moment to shine. I'm going to show everyone that I am actually the power behind the throne.
We'll find out soon enough why she decided to go. Lucy Beresford, Duncan Barks, thank you both so much. Now let's take a quick look at the weather. Things are set to turn much milder next week, but in the meantime, the cold weather continues for the rest of the weekend. It will be a cold start to Sunday morning with a widespread rural frost and light winds away from North Sea coasts. Now, apart from a few showers in the northeast, much of Britain will have a fine and dry day. The best of the sunshine will be through the morning as thicker clouds will build from the west later, bringing rain and drizzle into western parts. Outbreaks of rain will spread into Ireland and Western Scotland. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, we'll have more on the death of the former Scottish First Minister Alex Salmond, who has died at the age of 69.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.